So let's just go ahead and get right into it. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in for another episode of Industry Insights. Today we have a very special guest, my good friend. We got Ross Barber-Smith of Electric Kiwi in the building with us today. Ross, how is it going?
Hey, it's all going good. How about you?
I'm doing good. As I mentioned earlier, trying to wake up still. I don't know
Hmm.
what's going on, but I'm tired, but I'm here.
That's what matters. You showed up.
That's it. That's the
There you
half
go.
the battle. Half the battle is showing
Absolutely.
up. Cool. So let's go ahead and just jump right into the questions. I got a series of questions for you that we're just gonna go over. And again, for those that are just now joining in, feel free to drop some questions in the chat as we go along, and we'll answer them as we come across them. All right. So first, I had like an amazing introduction for you. The description in the event, all that is there. So I'm hoping everyone has done their research on who you are. But if they haven't, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ross, as you said, and I am the founder and web designer at Electric Kiwi, and we design awesome custom websites for bands, musicians, and music-related businesses. I've been doing this for, I would want to say, like 10 to 12 years full time now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Started out in the kind of music thinking that I wanted to be a performer. So I studied popular music at university, had a confidence crisis in my final year,
Mm-hmm.
decided I'll leave the performance side to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd already been doing websites since I was like 12 or something. So figured I would try and combine the two things that I enjoyed, um, and see if I could do that for a living. And a few things happen along the way, not able to find work, and then you have to do kind of non-music related things for a while, which I did. But after kind of getting my first sort of freelance client via Twitter, um, everything kind of rolling from there. It was a
Mm-hmm.
rare, bold move on my part.
Yeah.
So, just very briefly, an artist that I'd followed for years tweeted that she was looking for an intern in LA to help out with some digital marketing stuff. And I messaged her just saying, "Hey, I'm in the wrong place, but I'm exactly who you need. Could
Mm-hmm.
we chat?" And we did, and I did some website work for her, and then she introduced me to a couple of friends of hers, and
Mm-hmm.
then it kind of just went from there.
Nice.
So the whole who you know thing is important, but I guess my first thing I would like to say is yes, it is about who you know, but it's not necessarily about who you're born knowing or who you've, grown up with. It's
Mm-hmm.
about who you know and who you meet along the way. So
Right.
if you don't know the people right now, that's okay. You've still got time to meet them and get to know them.
Yep, exactly. And I just want to rewind a little bit. You mentioned that you got your first client off of Twitter.
Yes. Yep.
Explain how did that happen?
So
I know you
I
said she put up a post or a tweet and you
Yeah,
just
so
replied back to
she
her.
tweeted, but I'd followed her for a while, so I actually knew her back from the MySpace days. Well, I mean, I say knew, I knew of her. I
Okay.
owned her CD, and I'd performed one of her songs at one of my performances at university, actually. Um, but she didn't know who I was really.
Mhm.
But then, obviously, when MySpace disappeared, I followed her on Twitter, and it was just by chance I saw that tweet and just thought, I'm going to take a chance and just
Yeah,
say,
took a shot.
hey, this is what I do. I have a couple of examples that I'd created, like just, for fun, I
Hmm.
guess, before I really kind of knew what I was going to be doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's how that happened. And social media has been a good way of
Yep.
meeting people. That's how we met.
On Twitter.
Yeah,
Yep.
we met through Twitter too. Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Yep.
right.
Yep. We sure
Um,
did. Yeah.
so many people. So it's
Hmm.
still, and I think it still has its place.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
I'm still a fan of Twitter.
yeah.
It's still my number one social media tool. Even though I don't post, I am always on there. Just seeing what's trending, the topics, what's going on. And what's crazy is that with Twitter, all the trending topics are they make their way onto Instagram like 2 or 3
Mhm.
days later. So it's like when people send me stuff on Instagram, I'm like, I already knew that already because
Yeah.
I'm already on Twitter. So yeah, I really wanted to hone in on that because I feel like a lot of people, and we've talked about this before, just people sleep on Twitter. They overlook it.
Yeah.
They focus on Instagram and TikTok and maybe Facebook, but I'm just like, Twitter still has life there. There's still some activity going on where you can actually utilize it for business as well as personal,
Yeah,
just
and I would actually
organic
say
network.
in many ways, kind of on the
Mhm.
business side,
Yep.
I find Twitter can actually be sort of an easier platform to connect with other professionals in the
Mm.
industry,
Yep.
because there's so much noise on Instagram and
Yes.
TikTok, and a
Yeah.
lot of people, a lot of people do keep their Facebook more personal, so they
Mhm.
may not accept you if they don't know
Mhm.
you, at this point. Whereas
Yep.
Twitter is a lot more open, and I think if you're so my tip for Twitter is have lists of like of people. They can be private lists, like people that you want to work with or people that
Mhm.
you're interested in, and just kind of keep an eye on that. Like their
Yeah.
posts and retweet a few things now and then. Get involved in conversations is a big one because you
Mhm.
just never know. And like I said, that's how we met, and
Yep.
that was I don't want to say how many years ago that was. It's probably almost 10 years.
It's
Yeah,
getting there. Yep, yep. Because I started Baseline, or announced that I was starting the Baseline group 9 years ago today.
right.
It
Yep.
popped up in a memory on my Facebook today. I was like, "Whoa, 9 years!" So it was definitely around that time. Maybe a year later or months
Yeah,
later.
I
Yep,
feel like it was 2014, maybe late 2013,
yep,
2014
yep,
thereabouts.
yep. Exactly, exactly. So with your business now as a web designer, how were you able to transition, like when you first got your first client, were you focusing on web design full time, or were you doing something else on the side?
So at that point, I was working full time in a call center,
Okay.
which uh, was
We've
not
all
my
been there.
favorite. Was not my
Hmm.
favorite.
Yep.
I mean, there's definitely some good things that came out of it.
Mhm.
You learn good customer service skills. Patience is a big one. Oh, you
Big
you
time.
learn a lot of patience.
Yep.
You also learn how to use a mute button very effectively.
Yeah.
So I did learn some things. So I was doing that, but I also was doing an internship for a company uh, in Glasgow. It was like an international sort of performing arts, not like convention type thing. So it was like a
Mhm.
big event that was coming up. So I was doing that internship while also then doing work for this artist. And then the work that I did for that artist actually then led to me getting an internship remotely with a social media agency in London. So I did some social media management and some web design stuff while I
Mhm.
was then also trying to build up a couple of freelance clients of my own.
Mhm.
Um, and from there, I then actually left the call center and
Mhm.
went to work for a digital marketing agency in Glasgow, who mostly did work with like hotels.
Mhm.
So it was an interesting way to learn kind of how the agency environment works. Not it wasn't necessarily the clientele that I wanted, but
Mhm.
taught
Mhm.
me it taught me certain things that you should and shouldn't do when
Yeah.
working with clients and working with other people in a team.
Yeah.
So again, beneficial, and it was nice to be able to kind of be able to do my freelance stuff on the side. And
Mhm.
then there was kind of a pushing point where I thought, right, now is the time. If I'm going to try and do this,
Yeah.
I'm just going to try and do it.
Yeah.
And those first couple months are rough
Mhm.
when it's the very uncertain kind of, where's the next client coming from? Is this client
Mhm.
going to pay their invoice? And,
Yeah.
all the things you learn that you never had to learn before.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it was an experience,
Yep.
and some of that's still being learned to this day,
Mhm.
but but it's all good for the most part.
Awesome. Awesome. So back then, what was I going to ask you? What was your connection to music? I know you said it was a passion, but did you play?
Singer,
Sing.
singer,
That's right.
yeah,
Okay.
and that's where the confidence crisis came in. So
Mm.
for context, so in our final year, we had to do like an hour-long performance based on a research topic of our
Mhm.
choice.
Mhm.
Do not ask me why I chose this topic because vocally it didn't suit me, but I decided to do the influence of grunge on popular music. So it was things like, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and then,
Mhm.
moving, into stuff like Nickelback and all the kind of modern things. But the problem was we had to put a band together to
Mhm.
like accompany us. My
Mhm.
band didn't learn the songs. So, I'm standing on stage ready to like give it everything and it all just falls apart, basically.
Wow.
Um, so I'd still scraped a pass on that
Mm-hmm.
particular class, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of made me think, the performance side of things, you need a lot of resilience, and
Yeah.
you really have to want it. I
Yeah.
think you really have to want it. So for me now, I like to sing. I still do vocal exercise like almost every day because I
Mm-hmm.
like to keep it up. It's nice. It's fun for doing karaoke, or
Right.
if people come around, they've got a guitar. You can play something. But no, I felt like, yeah, it kind
Mm-hmm.
of. I'm glad I learned that lesson then, and
Mm-hmm.
not I hadn't been pursuing it for like 2 or 3 years
Mm-hmm.
professionally, and then for something to happen to pull it down. So no, it was
Yeah.
just, yeah, it was a realization for sure.
Yeah. Makes sense. So let's fast forward. Let's talk about some of your web design experience and whatnot. So, are you able to name some of the clients that you've worked with that we may know about?
Yeah, yeah,
Not
we
to
can name a
brag,
few.
but
We can name a few. Yeah, 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 sure.
'cause you got some big
Um,
projects out there.
and a couple that we've collaborated on, in
Yep,
fact. So,
exactly. Yep.
so yeah, to go back a little bit. So one of my earlier kind of sort of bigger clients is Tyler Hilton, who starred in One Tree Hill and Walk the Line. He played Elvis in Walk the Line,
Yep.
but he's an
Right.
incredible singer songwriter in his own right as well.
Forgot about him.
Um, so we did some work together. Still speak every now and then. Great, great guy. More recently, I worked with Lee DeWise, who won. I don't know which series of American Idol he won, but he won
Hmm.
one of them.
Hmm.
Um, Also, great guy, incredibly talented singer songwriter, and he actually had one of his songs in The Walking Dead. They
Hmm.
included the full thing,
Wow.
which was really cool.
Awesome.
Um, and more recently, the Isley Brothers, who
Hmm.
I know you're
Yep.
very familiar with.
Very familiar
So yeah, so they're a
with.
recent client. I did do a website for a management agency called Neon Coast, and they represent Kane Brown and Restless Road, and they're doing some really, really big things at the moment,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
awesome. And the thing that kind of ties all these people together is great people.
Yep.
It's great. And I think that's when you and I have collaborated, we've collaborated
Hmm.
on the Matthew Knowles
Yep.
website as well,
Hmm.
which was
Hmm.
which was awesome. And another client, probably not so well known outside the UK, but within the UK, the Overtones, they're a platinum
Hmm.
selling kind of vocal harmony
Yep.
group. And again, nice people. It
Yep.
makes a huge difference. Makes
Makes
a
a
huge
big
difference.
difference. Yes, when it comes to these web design projects, as far as collecting all the assets and just there's a lot of back and forth and communication going on to make sure that what they envision is comes out right. So it
Yeah,
always makes sense to just have like a good team and good people that you're working with when it comes to that because it can be a lot and it can be even more challenging when they don't have it together.
yeah, it can be. Like there's a lot more that goes into a project than just being the designer.
Hmm.
It's designer, kind of educator, technical support,
Yeah.
counselor sometimes, it can
Yeah.
be all sorts of things. But in some ways that's kind of what I love about it. Sometimes the unexpected things, and
Hmm.
being able to help with stuff that is kind of slightly outside
Hmm.
of what you've agreed. But
Yep.
I think in many ways it's appreciated, and I
Yeah.
think it can help turn a client into a friend as well as a client, which I definitely enjoy that.
Yep, yep, for sure. So what would you say would have been like the most challenging obstacle, some of these artists or even teams and businesses may have faced when it comes to having their website developed? Like, you know.
I mean, I think quite a lot of clients when they come to me have either tried to do something themselves before and
Mm,
put something together that's been kind of fine, but not really at the level that
yeah.
sort of matches where their music or their career is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, and I think that they've maybe found it challenging to find the right designer. Once they've made a decision, right, we're going to move away from the DIY thing just to
mm-hmm.
hiring someone. I think kind of deciding on who the right person is can be a challenge,
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't really know anyone,
Yeah.
um, personally, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's the whole kind of you've got to build some trust with someone if you're going to be
Yeah.
spending quite a lot of time and money working with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's sometimes a challenge, and sometimes another challenge is if they don't have a website, is sometimes realizing when is the right time and also what they need to put on it.
Yeah.
Which is why one of the first questions that I'll ask a client is kind of, well, where are things right now? And where do you see things going over the next 12 to 18 months? Because then that way I can guide you a little bit more on
Mhm.
what's going to be important
Yep.
for the content of the website.
Mm-hmm.
Visually, I like kind of clients to give me an idea of some
Mm-hmm.
of the sites that they like.
Mm-hmm.
And often the photography kind of leads the direction
Yeah.
as well.
Big time.
But sometimes that can be a challenge. Sometimes clients will say, "Oh, I've not really looked for anything that I like," and I'm like, "Okay, well, let's have a think about some of the artists that are maybe a similar genre and similar kind of level to you. We'll start
Mm-hmm.
there
Yeah.
and see what happens." So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes a lot of
there can
sense.
be some hand holding, but I'm
Yeah.
fine with holding hands.
Yep. When would you say because you touched on it a little bit just now, like when would you say is the right time for an artist to have a website designed by you? Like when is it the perfect time to move from DIY to hiring someone?
Um, I mean, I think the right time to have a website, just in general, is kind of right at the start of you
Mm-hmm.
taking things seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's no there's nothing else that kind of shows that you're professional and dedicated quite as much, I think, as having that dedicated
Yeah,
website.
I agree.
So I'd say as soon as you're thinking, right, this is what I'm pursuing,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to happen. In terms of working with someone like me, or any kind of designer who's doing this professionally, it's almost really kind of like when you're ready to take it to like the next level. I think when you feel like what you've got isn't showcasing your music in the best way possible, and you
Mm-hmm.
need someone that knows what they're doing to guide that and
Yeah.
to really help you find ways to do things more effectively. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
probably the time that you need to think about collaborating with someone.
Yep, yep. Now you said, they should have a website just to even start, right? At the very beginning, even if they have a link tree or, a landing page that will direct them to all their social media accounts, like they still need a website.
I would argue yes. I would
Okay.
argue yes. I mean, I think having a link tree, especially if it's connected with your domain name,
Mm-hmm.
is definitely better than nothing.
Yeah.
But I think if you're at the point where a link tree style thing is all you really need, then
Mm-hmm.
I think go that a little bit further and go for a landing page that has a nice photography of you, has your logo, and then has like the main links there,
Mm-hmm.
rather than using Linktree. I mean, I'm not sure if Linktree is like a subscription service, if you have to pay for it
Yeah,
or
you
it's
do.
free
Yeah.
or whatever. Um, but I think you could build something very similar
Mm-hmm.
to that
Mm-hmm.
that is your website,
Yeah.
and that is just a great first step, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So why would you say is a website is important now? Like, I mean, I know, but I'm just asking
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
people because
yeah.
everyone knows I'm all about branding and making sure everything is consistent. And some of the stuff that we ask artists to do is to legitimize them as a professional artist. Like this isn't just a hobby. So from your perspective, why is it important for an artist to even have it? Like you said, they should have one in the beginning to look professional, but is there anything else like beyond that?
Yeah, and this does vary a little bit depending on kind of where they are in their career and kind of what they're currently sort of working on. So I
Mm-hmm.
think from an industry perspective, like if you're looking to work with a manager, you're trying to book some shows at venues, or you're trying to connect with like a booking agent or anything along those lines, I think having a website just puts you that one step above the other people that
Mm-hmm.
are trying to get the same things that don't have the website.
Yeah.
So there's that right off the bat. Like you said, for the branding side of things,
Mm-hmm.
there's no better way to brand yourself
Mm-hmm.
than on your website, because
Yeah.
with things like Facebook and Instagram, you're so limited in terms of what you can put on your profile or
Mm-hmm.
on your page,
Mm-hmm.
that you can't really express that
Right.
fully, I think, in
Right.
the same way. And I think, it can act as a great place to showcase so many things. So your bio, for example, which has to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Your music, you can have an archive really of all of your releases, so people can see everything you've released in one place without having to search all over the place to find it. You can have
Mm-hmm.
a press kit so that if you're trying to reach out to blogs or any venues or anyone who might need your press kit, is right there on the website. You don't need to send them something separate. It's
Right.
right there. And all the contact information's there. Your tour dates are there. You're
Yep.
hopefully, if you've got some press, you'll be showcasing all the past press that you've had and
Mm-hmm.
news and all these kinds of things. It's really just a way of showing, hey, look, I've done all these great things. Here's the newest stuff that's coming out.
Yeah.
And that gives people a reason to invest and
Yeah.
do more of
Yep.
the same. And I think from a fan perspective, I know, like, obviously social media is a great way of connecting kind of in the moment with people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you can give people more on the website, so for example, I would say, like, for every music release that you put up there, you've got the artwork, you've got the audio. I
Yeah.
would say include things like the credits and a bit of a
Yep.
description or a story behind the song or the album, because I
Mm-hmm.
think the more context people can get, the more connected they'll feel. And that's
Yeah.
not for everyone. Like, not every person that finds your song on Spotify is going to want that. But
Right.
for the people that do want it,
Right.
I think that makes a big
It's
difference.
there. Mm-hmm.
And also things like your mailing list should be on there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best way to collect email addresses from people is going to be on your website's mailing list, and things like merch as well, stuff that they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to get anywhere else, and that's going to hopefully bring you some income as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And then I like how you said earlier, when you're trying to reach out to talent buyers and get booked for shows, it's like you're trying to stand out amongst everyone else that's trying to compete for that same slot. And
Yeah.
this is a way for you to stand out. So it's like going to a job interview dressed up, whereas everybody else is dressed down. So,
Exactly, and I've
yeah.
had clients tell me, that their website was a big factor in, some of
Mhm.
the festivals that they played at.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that helped them get booked, because
Mhm.
it wasn't just that it looked professional, but it had everything that the people needed. They didn't have to have five emails back and forth. Oh, hey, can you send us this? Can you send us that? We had everything that the venue or the promoter could have asked for already there. It made it easy, and they could see all the reviews that they'd had, all the press that they'd had. So it was kind of an easy sell for them.
Mhm.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, and that's them saying it. So I'm like, yeah, great, okay.
Right, right. So how much should an artist or even a management company budget for a decent website?
I think that's going to vary so much from project to project,
Mhm.
but yeah, I knew you were going to ask me this question.
Yep.
My thinking would be um, somewhere kind of around like the $1,000 to $5,000 range,
Mhm.
depending on the scale and the complexity and all these kinds of
Yep.
things. I know there will be design agencies out there that will charge much less, and there'll be design agencies that charge a lot more,
A
a
lot more.
lot more.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think the most important thing really is finding a designer whose work you like, who you feel that
Mhm.
you can trust and work with,
Mhm.
and that you would be happy for it to be a long-term kind of
Mhm.
relationship. Like,
Yep.
those would be the three things I would say. Obviously, budget and money is an important
Mhm.
factor, but I would probably weigh those other elements
Mhm.
almost equally
Yep.
to the cost.
Yep. And also responsiveness too.
Yeah. Oh,
You
that's yeah.
know, because I've run across quite a few people that are like, I'm working with somebody and he just ghosted me, took my money and ran, and it's like,
Yeah, I hear
what?
that all the time, and I get quite a lot of people come to me sort of, I think you're on the Artist Managers Connect group on Facebook as
Yep.
well.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people posting on there like, oh, we're looking for a designer ASAP, and I'll connect with them like, oh, hey, when's the deadline? Like, oh, this Friday. Like, oh, why is that? Oh, because our previous designer just bailed on us at the last minute. It happens. It does happen. So yeah, always try and get recommendations and referrals from people, because I definitely think they're the way to go.
Yep, yep. I agree. I agree. So you said 1,000 to 5,000, depending on the scale, how complex it is, the features. I always tell people it depends on if you want stuff flying around on it or not. Because that requires a lot more, technical expertise to make something like that happen. So, given that, what if someone is like, well, I can just build something on Squarespace. I can
Yeah.
just I have a Squarespace site. I've done that, and it's been working well. So
Mhm.
why would I hire you? And what do you use to develop websites? Do you use Squarespace?
So I'm not a Squarespace guy myself. I think of the kind of DIY type platforms, Squarespace is a pretty solid one. And I do see a lot of people with great Squarespace websites. It's just not a platform that I'm particularly well versed in, and it's really just because of customization. So
Mm-hmm.
I use WordPress as the platform, but
Mm-hmm.
everything I build is completely custom, and it just uses WordPress really so that clients can update the content and things
Yeah.
themselves. Um, and I would say if you are looking for something that is more tailor made,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, I would say WordPress or anything along those lines is
Mm-hmm.
probably the way
Mm-hmm.
to go.
Yep.
But if you're relatively confident in building something yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Squarespace is certainly an option.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's hard for me because obviously I'm gonna say, but you should be
Of
hiring a
course.
web designer. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I totally understand that some people would like to do something themselves, and some people are pretty skilled at doing
Yeah.
things themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's just whether or not that's where you want to invest your time, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I feel like Squarespace is basic, and we've talked about this before. It's just basic. It's a good DIY platform, but I feel like if you really want to get creative and funky with your site to match your brand and stand out, it's like you have to use something that's more customizable like WordPress.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think, if you work with a designer who specializes in Squarespace, they probably could do more on the customization side. It's just I'm not sure quite how
They're hard to
easy they
find.
make it to do some of those things. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and there's not really that many um, designers I know who kind of would specialize in
Mm-hmm.
Squarespace itself.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, yeah, yep. Everybody knows I'm a WordPress girl myself. I love WordPress. I learned it and everything, and I love the fact that you can just really do whatever you want to do on it. Even some of the most fanciest, complex, customized websites were done on WordPress.
Yeah, it's
You know?
something like 63% or something of all the websites in the world
Yeah,
are WordPress based. So there's
yep,
a reason. There is a
yep.
reason for it.
Exactly, exactly. So, how often should a website be updated or maintained? Because I know you offer that as well, like the monthly maintenance package and whatnot. So, how often do you think an artist should keep their website updated and maintained?
So in terms of content, I would say be updating that whenever there's something new. So if there's a new release, that
Mm-hmm.
should be going up there. If there's new press articles that have gone up, they should be up there. Tour dates, I mean, most artists kind of link that with bands in town or Songkick, so
Mm-hmm.
they should be updated automatically.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say keep the content as fresh as you can.
Yeah.
If you've got a blog or a news section, try and at least update that maybe once a month, I would say at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
But ideally, you want to be sending people to your website at as many opportunities as you can. But it's much
Yeah.
easier to do that when there's something new
Mm-hmm.
to send them. So that would be kind of my advice on that. But I guess in terms of if you were to update the design of a website,
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say, some artists maybe want to go a little bit overboard and they want to sort of re-theme everything for every single.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
would
that's
say
too much.
probably not as much as that. I would say
Yeah.
maybe every album, or if you drastically change your appearance,
Yes.
or if you change direction, like I don't know, you move in a different direction with your
Mm-hmm.
music, you may need to kind of retheme it just to kind of fit that more,
Right.
so it's not too confusing.
Yep.
But generally speaking, when clients come to me for like a redesign, it's maybe 3 or 4 years after we've done the initial site.
Mm.
Normally, it's kind of yeah, because that tends to be album release cycle. They might have a couple of EPs in between, but they don't feel they're major enough to do a full kind
Yep.
of redesign. So yeah, sort of about 3 or 4 years tends to be
Yep.
that thereabouts.
Yeah, or like you said, a rebrand, or their appearance is different, or they're changing the theme of their look. Because great examples like Rihanna. She's always every time she released something, she had a different look, different theme and vibe. So with something like that, it would make sense to update it, the design of it, every time there's a new release.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it also just depends. Because I mean, with a lot of the sites being photography based, switching out photography is
Yeah.
generally a pretty easy thing to do.
Yep.
It's just that if the color scheme of the site is very tied into the photography, you may want to kind of tweak that a little bit
Mm-hmm,
as
mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah.
But for me, I kind of take that on a case by case basis as to,
Yeah.
how drastic the change might be.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Cool. Cool. All right. So what we can do now is go ahead and open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Let's see. Ben, I see that had his sound had cut out. Hopefully, are you able to hear us now? Did you try logging in and logging back out? Let me know in the comments. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we didn't cover. What's the turnaround time for a website?
That's $1 million question, Patrice. So I've kind of been saying 4 to 6 weeks to clients. And that's to kind of factor in time for them to get various assets to me, time to provide feedback on things, and then, work through any potential changes. But it has been known that things can be much quicker. So there's been a few lately that I've said 4 to 6 weeks, but because the clients were on it and they got me all the stuff I needed and everything, we were able to do it in a week, possibly less than a week, actually. Which is great. I love being I'm a big fan of momentum. So as soon as I get something going, I like to keep it rolling quickly. But at the same time, I understand that, artists are busy. There's more things going on than just the website. And a lot of the time, if we're working on a website, it tends to be because there's a release coming. So they're already kind of juggling all the things that go along with that as well. So that generally is how it goes. But there's, as I think there are some that are the complete opposite. So we say 4 to 6 weeks, and 6 months later, we're still waiting on some stuff. So
6 months.
It happens. It happens.
It
So that's why, like, flexibility and adaptability are much needed skills in our line of work.
Exactly. Cool. Well, if anyone has any questions after our chat here, how can they reach you? Like, what's the best way for them to keep tabs on what you got going on and everything?
Well, I am pretty much everywhere. I am in the home community, so you feel free to reach out to me here. I am on my website. I should probably promote that first. Come on, let's be honest. I should be promoting the website first. So it's electrickiwi.co.uk. So it's electric as in electric, and kiwi as in the bird or the fruit, whichever you prefer, .co.uk. And Instagram and Twitter is both Electric Kiwi, and Facebook is Electric Kiwi Design, because some power company in New Zealand already had the Electric Kiwi name. So yeah, that's where you can find me. But I'm pretty responsive everywhere. I'd say at the moment Instagram is probably my platform of choice, but anywhere is good. Wherever works for you.
Cool. Looks like we got a question in. Ross said, "Thank you for speaking with us, Ross. I sent an email to you just a second ago to perhaps set up a website. What are the most important things I need to supply you with besides money, photos, right? Money, photos, videos, etc."
Sure. So basically, the way the process would work is I would typically have a call or email conversation with a few kind of initial questions. So the things I would need to know off the bat would be kind of where things are just now in your career and what your kind of plans are for the next 12 to 18 months. And the reason I ask those questions is really just so that I know what kind of pages and sections we should be focusing on and what the main features should be on the homepage, for example. And then based on that, I would put together a checklist of all the assets that I would need from you. So generally speaking, most of the things I would need would be like a good bio, photography, as you mentioned, links to a few videos that we would include from YouTube, ideally. A lot of the time when it comes to the music, I would grab the artwork and we would include the Spotify player and then credits or description to accompany that, as well as the main streaming and purchase links. If you have press out there, I would ask for a few links to some of the press articles, the contact information that you'd want to include, the if we were going to showcase tour dates, we'd see which platform is best for you, whether it's Songkick, Bands in Town, or something else, and we would embed that. And if there was a store, then we would discuss the best kind of platform for that, the products you're selling, and and I would give you a list for everything that we would need for that. But I like it to be collaborative, and I can guide you kind of through the whole process. But yeah, generally speaking, those are the main sections that most artist websites would have, but it does
Mhm.
vary a little bit depending on kind of where you are and what your plans are.
Yeah, and then you touched on it a little earlier too, but also I think it's helpful just to repeat that is to send some links of some sites that you may like, or
It's
you know,
always helpful. Yeah,
yeah,
just to get an idea of some of the visual elements. And I always
yeah,
say to clients as well, it's like if you're able to describe the parts that you like, um, specifically,
yep,
then that's great. If not, don't
mhm,
worry. Because normally if they send like 3 examples, for example, most of those would tend to have some elements that are similar, so I can kind of get an idea
yeah,
of things. But one thing I would say is don't worry if you don't know any of the technical terms or what things are
mhm,
actually called. Even if you need to describe something as oh, that thing that kind of moves
mhm,
along the top,
mhm,
I'll know what you mean.
yeah.
So
And the
it's
good
all
thing
good.
about it being a customized website as well is that you can really get detail down to the scroll bar, right? You can customize how the
Mhm.
scroll
That's
looks.
one of Patrice, that's one of my favorite things to do. I know that's such a small detail, right?
Yes.
But the small details are actually some of the most fun parts for
Hmm.
me. It's just like because I feel like those are the small details that kind of elevate a
Yeah.
design without you really noticing
Yeah.
it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I focus on all these little things
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's just to me it makes a difference, and I
Exactly.
think
Which makes you good at what you do.
thank you, thank
The
you.
fact that you pay attention to those little details and the cursor and things of that nature. So yeah, I absolutely love that. Another thing that I love about your work is that it's diverse. Sometimes you come across web designers and they have a style, so all their sites look the same. Whereas with you, I feel like that's how you can tell someone is really good, is because they're able to customize the site to fit that particular artist, whether they're R&B, whether they're a legendary group or an independent artist or someone that's more classy and elegant, like
Hmm.
whatever it is, you know how to tap into that artist, their brand, and create something that fits them and is a good representation of them. And I absolutely love that. So make sure you guys check out his website, and you can immediately see that just right on the homepage. Just from the samples and the work samples in his portfolio, you can easily see how detailed he is in making sure that he designs something that fits his client.
Thank you. I mean, that's definitely important to me because it like really that's the whole kind of ethos of why I go down the custom route is because I feel like every artist is different, so their website shouldn't be the same as someone
Right.
else's because to me it kind of defeats the point. Like
Mm-hmm.
music is diverse, music is unique,
Yep.
and the website is the visual online representation of that. So
Exactly.
it should look as good as they sound, and it should be as unique to them as well.
Exactly. Cool. So I'm gonna put it out there one more time. Any other questions, feel free to drop them. If not, we can start wrapping up. So again, feel free to check him out at electrickiwi.co.uk and Instagram.com electric kiwi. And then, like you said, he's on everything else, literally. But you can definitely find him there for sure. All right. Any other questions? Feel free to type them now. If not, we can wrap up. So, what do you have coming up that you can actually speak on publicly?
I'm not sure how much I can speak about
But you got
publicly at the
projects lined
moment. There's
up,
a
right?
there's a lot going on.
Yep.
There's a lot
Okay.
going on. A
You
lot that
stay
I'm
busy.
excited about. Yeah, yeah, exactly. A lot that I'm excited about. A lot that's kind of potentially going to happen. That
Mhm.
you know how it is at the start of a year. Like you hear from
Yeah.
people like, yeah, we're ready to go, ready to go. But then everything else kind of catches up with them.
Yeah.
People pulling them in other directions. So I'm just kind
Yeah.
of I'm in sort of a bit of with some things it's a wait and see, and with other things it's like, oh, we're on. We're making stuff happen. So no,
Yeah.
there's good things happening, and there's a lot of existing clients who have got some exciting things coming up too, which is always nice to kind of, even if I'm not directly involved, it's nice to be supporting from the
Exactly.
sidelines and being there if they need something from me
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Ross, it's been a pleasure as always. It's good to see your face. We always talking, texting, and DMing and everything.
I
So
know, I know.
it's always good to see your face. And I do appreciate you staying up super late because what is it like 3
Oh
a.m. over
no, no,
there?
no, no, no. It's only at 6:30 p.m. So it's not too bad. It's not
Oh,
too bad.
okay, good. So it's
But
like
yeah, no,
midnight.
if it was 3 a.m., this would be a very different conversation.
Different
Yeah,
conversation.
it wouldn't really work.
I understand. Well, yes, it's been a pleasure as always. And yeah, thanks again for hopping on to do this. And yeah, if anybody has any questions going forward, feel free to reach out to him directly on the platform or his website, or yeah, you can reach out to me if you need to have a warm intro or something. I don't know. Whatever works for you. We're available.
Yep,
All right. Is there any parting
absolutely.
words you want to share with the people?
I just say thanks very much for having me. Thanks for welcoming me into the community. It's been good to kind of read everyone's posts and sort of see who everyone is. So no, I'm very grateful to you and to everyone else for welcoming me. And yeah, you guys know where I am. If you have any questions or if you want to reach out,
All right, cool. With that being said, you guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Ross, I'll follow up with you offline. And
sounds good.
yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.